I'm going to be reading the first part of Ezekiel chapter 37. It's called the Valley of Dry Bones. And so a little background story is Ezekiel was a prophet, and this was during the time when there was the divided kingdom. So there was the southern kingdom and northern kingdom, or northern kingdom and southern kingdom. You guys might have heard me talk about this in past classes. But so Ezekiel was one of the prophets, and back in that day they were kind of known as the crazy people, but they weren't. They were just, people thought that because they actually heard from God, and they would warn the people, and they wouldn't listen. So in Ezekiel, this is just to give a time frame after Babylon had conquered the southern kingdom. So it was King Nebuchadnezzar, and he took them to Babylon, and they're in exile. Okay, and so all the people had doubted him. The Lord took hold of me, and I was carried away by the Spirit of the Lord to a valley filled with bones. Who knows what bones are? He led me all around among the bones that covered the valley floor. They were scattered everywhere across the ground and were completely dried out. So they were not fresh at all. They were dried out. They were in a valley, and they were just, there's no life to them. No possible way life can be seen in these things. Skeletons are literally when someone's dead, and when they have deteriorated over a long, very, very long period of time, they become a skeleton. Then he asked me, this is Jesus, God asking, Son of man, can these bones become living people again? What did I just say?
No.
Yes, that's correct. But in God's case, anything is possible. O sovereign Lord, I replied, you alone know the answer to that. Then he said to me, speak a prophetic message to these bones and say, dry bones, listen to the word of the Lord. This is what sovereign Lord says. Look, I am going to put breath into you and make you alive again. Now, when you breathe on a skeleton, on a bone, what would happen? What do you think would happen if you just breathed onto a bone? Adrian?
Nothing.
Yeah, nothing would happen. But God breathed into us, breathed life into Adam. So there's a little context. Look, I'm going to breathe into you and make you live again. I will put flesh and muscles on you and cover you with skin. He's talking to the skeletons, or the bones, completely dried out. He's going to put flesh onto their bones. He's going to put flesh, make you come alive again, and muscles on you, and cover them with skin. And obviously he's going to put blood in them so they can live. I will put breath into you, and you will come to life. Then you will know that I am the Lord. So I spoke this message, just as he told me. Suddenly as I spoke, there was a rattling noise all across the valley. What do you think that was? Who can answer that? What do you think that rattling noise was? Logan, you haven't answered yet.
God.
The rattling. It's a rattling all across the valley. What was the valley covered in?
The bones are covered in bones, so it's the bones.
Yeah, the bones are making the rattling sound. They're rattling. They're coming together. There's power. There's coming together. Okay? So he spoke this message, just as he told me. Suddenly, as I spoke, the rattling noise across the valley, the bones of each body came together and attached themselves as complete skeletons. So they're not bodies yet, but all the bones that were spread out, completely dried up, they all rattled, they moved together, and they completely just attached to each other. And they became full skeletons. Then, as I watched, muscles and flesh formed over the bones. Muscles and flesh just formed over the bones. Like that, how in the world? That is amazing. Isn't that amazing?
Yeah.
Then skin formed to cover their bodies. But they still had no breath in them. But who here has gotten fallen and tripped and got a cut? And you can see like blood, and maybe if it's super deep, you can see some muscle in there. Like I know my brother last year, like if you trip and fall and you get a cut and you're bleeding, like your skin's gone and some of your flesh can be gone. So my brother last year, we were up, long story short, chopping wood up at the Sizemores, the farm. Paul threw a metal stake into a piece of wood, plank of wood, and it bounced up and hit him in the head. Cut open his head. You could see the bone. You could see his skull. And it looked like he was taking a shower in blood. There was so much blood. We all instantly started falling and like praying in tongues over him because we thought it was like the end right there. But the lights were not out. But no one was home. And Let's just say that. I was like, whoa. All fell down, and it was bad. It was scary, but God helped him so they may live again. So I spoke the message as he commanded me, and breath came into their bodies. They all came to life and stood up on their feet, a great army. So he said, after they had no breath in them, but they had flesh, so they looked like now dead bodies. They just looked like dead bodies, recently dead, but there was still no life in them. God had to breathe his life into the bodies in order for them to be alive again, living people. Then, so God said, speak a prophetic message to the winds, Son of man. Speak a prophetic message and say, this is what the sovereign Lord says. Come, O breath from the four winds, breathe into these dead bodies so they may live again. So I spoke the message as he commanded me, and the breath came into their bodies. They all came to life and stood up on their feet, a great army. The valley was he was just walking around this valley. How would you feel if God leads you out into this valley and you're walking around? There's none of you here. None of you guys are even here. You're all just bones, detached, just scattered everywhere. And all of a sudden, God tells you to start speaking. Speaking, that sounds so weird if I start just saying things out in the open. He starts speaking, bones start moving. Stuff is happening. Bones are coming together. He's probably like, oh my goodness. Bones are flying all over the place. And then they all come together. They're skeletons. Then muscles. He's watching muscles just form out of thin air. Nothing. Muscles are making these bones. And then flesh. And then skin starts to form. But they look all dead. And then he speaks to the four winds. He commands, and it fills them up with life. And they all stand up, looking like a great army. How cool would that be? What would you guys do if you saw that happen around you? If God told you to do that, you'd be willing to do anything for God, right? If you witnessed that, you'd be willing to do anything for God. God actually does this stuff. If you believe God actually will do these things. Okay, then he said to me, Son of man, these bones represent the people of Israel. They are saying, we have become old, dry bones. All hope is gone. Our nation is finished. Therefore, prophesy to them and say, this is what the sovereign Lord says. Listen here. O my people, I will open your graves of exile and cause you to rise again. What did I say earlier? What did I say earlier about exile? Who knows what exile means?
It means to be thrown away, cast out.
Yes, and so what happened to the southern kingdom? They were taken to Babylon. They were in exile, okay? When Babylonians conquered them. Then I will bring you back to the land of Israel. That was their original land. When this happens, O my people, you will know that I am the Lord. I will put my spirit in you, and you will live again and return home to your land. Then you will know that I, the Lord, have spoken, and I have done what I said. Yes, the Lord has spoken. Thinking about a miracle God done, and he relates it back to what he had promised. And he still can do that today, just to think about. But it's when you guys act on faith. That sounds pretty crazy, just going out into a valley. But people saw prophets back then as crazy people. You wouldn't want to be looked at as crazy, obviously, but I would find it as a compliment if people thought I was crazy for the Lord, if I was crazy for God, and those things were happening around me daily. Man, that's like the life you want to live, because in heaven you will be rewarded for that, and that's eternal. And this is just like nothing in the eyes of eternity. We're literally this is like a blink for God, and we're already in heaven again.